And then you're done talking.
Nice.
Wrapped it for
I
you.
get a gift too.
Gotcha.
No, that's the gift.
No. Oh.
I unwrapped it
You
for you.
unwrapped it for me. I thought we were getting a gift.
Jeff will get a gift in a gift bag.
That's right. Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome. Y'all good? Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our accounting panel. Today we have 3 different guests joining us, some of which you may know already. So thanks for coming out on the snowy day. Just a couple of things before we get started. If you do own a cell phone, which probably 100% of you do, can I ask you to please turn it off, put it on silent or vibrate, and take it off the table and just put it on a chair or on the floor. That way we limit the distractions. Also, if you are participating in the Learning Passport program, you would have been given a survey when you entered the door. Do not complete the survey until after the... Do not complete the survey until after the panel has finished. If you complete it during the time, you won't get a stamp. And we will be stamping passports at the end in the back of the room. So we are going to begin. So our first question for our panelists is please introduce yourself, your position, and the company that you work for. And we'll start on my left.
I'm Corey Hines. I work with Heritage Gas as a corporate accountant.
I'm Jeff McKinnon. I teach at the Mount, and I am CFO of a drink company, and then a technology company, and a salad company.
My name is Rhonda Bercy. I'm an instructor at Mount St. Vincent as well in accounting. I'm also the president of KRTC Property Management Inc. and RBC Business Solutions, as well as the controller, I guess, for Advantage Signs and Graphics and Ontario Proscapes.
So what led you to the position that you're in today, whether this is education, job experience, a cooperative education work term, professional connections, etc.? And we'll start with you, Corey.
So I'm a former Mount student, taught both by Jeff and Rhonda. And I graduated from the Mount. Well, I finished all my classes December of 2017. And I started with Lyle Tilly Davidson January of 2018. They're a small public accounting firm on Argyle Street. I never did a co-op, but I had quite a few part-time jobs when I was a student here. I worked at Subway, did a brief stint at CIBC, and then I worked at RBC in their accounts payable department. And then recently, within the last couple of months, I passed the CFE examination for the CPA designation and started with Heritage Gas. So I would say that, you know, my education at the Mount and my CPA studies have led me to Lyle Tilly and Heritage Gas.
I'm also a Mount graduate from a couple years ago. I have my CPA designation, but for me, it's I would say almost every job I've ever had, certainly now, are all based on people I know. So no, I don't want to say none of the jobs I've ever had, but most of them aren't. I see an ad online and I apply and get a job. It's getting to know people, it's meeting people, it's talking to people. That's why I teach here from, 12 years ago-ish. I was bored sitting behind a desk typing away in Excel all the time. And I knew Peter from Umbercat. He was my professor before that. We played hockey together. He said, why don't you come teach a couple classes? 12 years later, I do it a lot. And then the other 3 roles that I have all are people that I know. So I've kind of developed a network, and that's what sort of gets me into, I only do the jobs I want to do, the jobs that I think are going to pay me what I want to get paid, and the jobs I'm going to have fun with. So for me, it's really nothing to do with sort of finding the ads in the paper or online or whatever, and all about knowing people and knowing who's looking and keeping a pulse on what's happening in the industry, and then finding, if I see a growing industry, i.e. cannabis, that might be interesting, I start making connections in that space and find out, what they're looking for and see if it's a fit.
For me, it's a little bit different, I guess. I graduated from here as well. I'm a Mount alum from a while ago. Longer ago than Jeff. I actually came here by accident. I came out to Dal, and I really didn't like the size of Dal, and I went home, and then when I came back to the Mount, when I came back to Halifax, because I'm from Labrador. So I came here, I got my accounting major, I guess, and then I actually went to work in industry for a lot of years. So I went to work in the oil and gas industry for 9 years as an employee, and then I jumped over to the actual self-employment side of it as an agent. And then built other businesses as well. And when we were getting ready to divest of the oil business, when ESSO was getting ready to sell it, I decided at that point it was time to take the designation. So I took the designation, and then kind of like Jeff, then I kind of got approached and asked by two universities in the city to teach. And then since that, I've taught a lot of courses, and I got involved in the CPA program as well with the facilitation and session leading. That kind of goes along with that program as well. So again, it's kind of the same in the respect that I do what I want to do. I kind of make my own schedule, which is kind of nice, and I get to choose. So I've actually never applied for a job, with the exception of my first job at 23, full-time, and my term position here. It's a little different.
So can you please share the types of jobs that are available for students who are considering a career with your company? However, I'm going to kind of expand this question to be a career in accounting. So what types of jobs, if you were to go out and Google search, part-time job in accounting or co-op placement in accounting, are students going to see?
Well, with I guess with Heritage Gas, we kind of hire a lot of people. We have a small office, I guess, for utility, especially. We have probably about 50 people on the floor, but we have an accounting department and an IT department that's made up of accountants and I mean, for a career in accounting, did you say? I guess.
Career, part-time, anything in accounting.
So I mean, there's tons of different routes. Me and all my friends, when I went to the Mount, we all kind of went our separate careers. Like some people went to CRA, some people went to the firm, like me, and some people went straight to industry. And we've pretty much all of us have moved jobs since, because we thought we were going to go somewhere and didn't enjoy it as much as we thought we would. So I would say kind of, everything's open, really, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I think to add to Corey's point, with the exception of my role at the Mount, all of my other companies were always hiring people in general. And there really does tend to be a bit of a people shortage. And we're starting to see, and I've heard about it for probably 15 years, that the baby boomers retire, there's going to be all these jobs available, and it never really seemed to materialize, but you're kind of starting to see it now, and I see it in accounting a lot as well. And just to give some perspective, between those three companies I'm involved with, we've hired, I want to say, 6 accounting people in the last 18 months, I guess. And they're all pretty small businesses. But I think to Corey's point, more so now than maybe ever, accounting, and probably every job for that matter, seems much more transient. People get in, they get a job, they like it, and they stick for a bit, but then they want to move on. Or they don't like it and they just switch. And you get a lot of that sort of transient accounting stuff. So positions there's constantly churn in the industry. And one of the things I do is I stay very close to all the headhunters, because they're the ones who ultimately place people in jobs in many cases. So I know them all really well. We go for beers probably once a month. And that's, again, that networking, but that's what they say, is there's always churn. And when one person leaves one job, that has a whole trickle effect, because then somebody who gets hired for that job leaves their job, and it just kind of creates this big sort of mix within the accounting world. So there's always jobs, and they're always churning. So it's, for you guys, I think it's just a matter of being ready, keeping an eye on the market, getting to know people, watching the job boards and the job postings. But I think too, with that, it's it's a double-edged sword, I guess, is you don't want to be that person that's always changing jobs either. So be aware, see what's happening. Nova Scotia has some really cool programs. I use them in my businesses. So we were featured in the news last month because we hired 3 people on the GTO program. So new graduates, the companies get subsidies for hiring them. Every semester we take 2 co-op students. So our businesses are all across Canada for the most part. All of the co-op hiring we do is in Nova Scotia because in Nova Scotia we have the co-op program that the funding for the businesses. So for you guys being in Nova Scotia, there's a ton of opportunity, and understanding those programs I think would also help you. You don't walk into an interview and say, hire me because half my salary is going to get paid. But keep that in mind because it matters for us, we do 2 co-op positions instead of 1 because they get half funded. So for the same cost, we get 2. So it's that type of stuff makes a big impact to the employer. So for you guys to know sort of what those different pockets of funding and programs are can only help.
This was a little tougher for me. I don't hire a lot of people for what I do. But I'll say this, like the firms are always looking for people. It is a very good place to get experience. It may not be a place that you choose to stay. And that's just kind of coming from listening to my own candidates through the CPA program talk about their journeys, more so than anything else, because I didn't go through a firm. I didn't have to do any of that in the position, the route I took. But in general, like it is a good stepping stone. The other thing is you will get your audit ticket or whatever you call it. What is it you call it? The audit certification, because you get the hours in a firm and you're not necessarily going to get that anywhere else. And then that makes you it makes you employable in other areas and stuff, like even if you consider government and stuff like that down the road, whether it's through provincial government, federal government, or CRA, or even Halifax Regional Municipality is going to be looking for things like that. Because audit is everywhere, even if it's not to the extent that a firm can value-added audit or anything like that, that's going to be relevant. Some jobs pay better than others, and some people are looking for that dollar amount at the end of the day. But consider all the things that you're getting from an employer when you're seeking out employment, all the different benefits you're getting. Are they paying for your education? Do you get time off in lieu to study for your CFE? Like, getting 6 to 8 weeks off when you're studying for that CFE is a big deal to me at the end of the day. I don't know how you felt about it because you went through it.
I did not take 6 to 8 weeks.
You did not? Yeah. A lot of students did, and they did it, and they were able to still be able to go home and enjoy their kids and stuff, because it's not just people that are like 23 years old getting out of university doing those professional programs when they move on. It's people with families that are doing it later in life. It's a very broad mix in that program. So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. I think, to Jeff's point, is knowing programs that are available to you and paying attention to what's coming up through career services even here. There is so much stuff that comes out through that department that you need to focus on it, and I believe that the business department sends out everything that they get. So remember to check your email.
Yes, check your email.
I have one more thing to add. I mean, just Rhonda made me think of it. I think when you guys are looking for those roles, you really need to do a bit of soul searching and figure out what is it you want to do. Because I think it's easy to fall into the money trap coming out of university. You've got a bunch of student loans and blah, blah, blah. You want to make money, you want to buy a car, you want to buy a house, you want to travel, all that stuff you're supposed to do when you graduate. But I think, ultimately you've got to sort of set back and say, okay, what do I want to do? What's sitting at a desk being miserable for 80, 60, 50 hours a week is not the best way to go. Trust me. So you got to find something that you're going to like, but it's going to sort of get you to. And I took a different path. Like I didn't do the firm thing. I just kind of did my own thing. I had people giving me advice, and I was like, nah, I'm going to do it my way. And at times I look back and go, yeah, I probably should have listened. And at times I look back and go, you know what? I think my way was the better way. And that was for me, because it's about. You've got to want to go to work every day, because the reality is you spend a ton of time there, but you've got to map out what does that mean for a career path. And that's what I always tell my students. What do you want to be at the end of the day when you grow up, kind of thing? And then doing what you want to do, is that going to get you there? And I think and Corey talked about it earlier with, him and his buddies graduated here, and I taught a lot of those guys, all good guys. They left, went on their own way, and most of them have switched jobs already, because they get in there and go, you know what? I don't really like that. So you've got to kind of figure out, all right, what am I going to do? Think of your own career as a business. say, how do I grow into what I want to be in 10 or 15 years, and then work backwards into what are the steps to get there that are going to make me happy. I don't know, no, I shouldn't say anybody. I know very few people who work at a firm and say, I love working at an accounting firm and I'm going to be here my whole life. There's the odd few that do, and they become partners and they make a ton of money and they work 100 hours a week. But then there's the other ones that say, like me, I don't want to do that. I want to go hang out. I want to be home by 5 o'clock most days. I want to be able to travel in the spring. I want to do this stuff. So it's really figuring out not only what job do you think you want, but what do you want from your career with your life, I think. And that's where, guys leave. And I think people get pushed to firms, and it's not as much anymore, which is it's a great experience. They come out, if you go to a firm, you're going to know more and have broader experiences than anybody. But you've grinded it out for crappy money for 4 years and 80 hours a week, and I don't know if that's necessarily the best. So you've got to really, nobody can answer that question for you except for yourself. So that was kind of my big epiphany was, I'm going to do it my way, and I don't care if people like it, and I hope it works for me. But that was really the thing is, okay, you've got to do what you want.
That's okay. No, you can contribute as much as you like. So our next question is, how competitive are positions within the field of accounting? And we can start with you, Jeff.
You guys are probably tired of hearing me already. Accounting and finance is super competitive. There's tons of people graduating. There's tons of smart people graduating. But as I kind of said earlier, there is a lot of turn in the space. So there's lots of jobs there. Will you get the perfect job upon graduation? I hope you do, but probably not. So it's really just a matter of building the resume, building your personal brand, and figuring out how do you fit. And you think of, and it always comes to my mind because I'm teaching business policy right now too, but it's all about what's your strategy. So how do I fit, each of you fit individually in a huge pool of accounting students, graduates, soon-to-be graduates, people who already have designations. Where do you fit and what makes you a little different? And that's really what it's sort of trying to carve out your path and how do you get those jobs. If you're just going to be another white piece of paper with a resume that just goes into everybody's inbox, it's going to be tough. But if you get out there and get to know people or meet people or become, recommended or known, that's the difference. Whether your GPA, and I'm biased, but whether your GPA is 4.3 or 2.1 or whatever mine was, it really doesn't matter. You need the certification, you need the degree, then you just need to know people and get to sort of find your path that fits for you. So it's not all about that sort of one pager that people get. So anybody here, even though it's competitive, because there's so many job opportunities and it's constantly churning, all you've got to do is get your foot in the right door at the right time, and it's all good. So to answer the question, super competitive, but I think it's a blank, even playing field for everybody. So keep at it, keep working, figure out how you're different and why people want to hire you, and there's tons of jobs to be had.
Reverse order, I guess. Network is my recommendation. I think it's competitive, but I think it's a lot of times it's all in who you know as to where you get. So whether it's you've chosen the co-op route with school and you've made connections via your work terms, or you connect via different avenues that you are presented with in university, or you take place in different career fairs and stuff and network yourself, have your own business card, strike conversations, hold them professionally, attending different events that you get the opportunity to attend through your contacts, whether it be through the university or other contacts that you make as you move through life. That to me is one of the biggest ways that you're going to find a job. So it is competitive, but a lot of the times it's in who you know. And making that connection is super important. And I'm not coming to you, like, my job experience or I wrote a resume to get the job at Imperial Oil when I was 23. My next resume was written by Knightsbridge, Robertson, Surratt, when I needed one to submit here to teach part-time. I paid them to do it. I'd never had a resume since I was 23. So I also went through a series of coaching sessions with Knightsbridge because one of my companies, when we divested the oil business, I got them to pay for this thing for me just so I could get all these wonderful things and have some fun, go do some networking, right? But that's where I learned about that. Setting up your LinkedIn profile, because people do actually hire off LinkedIn. In fact, I got approached through LinkedIn, not for myself. I ended up meeting with them and they did want to interview me for a job, which I chose not to interview for, but they wanted me to talk to them about hiring some of my students when they opened Innovation Drive RBC. That's how I got that connection. And they wanted names of students that they could reach out to give jobs to when they open that center and site. So you never know who your network connection is either.
Just before I jump in, I just wanted to kind of reiterate what Rhonda just said. LinkedIn is important. When I was at the Mount and I even graduated from the Mount, I didn't even care about LinkedIn. I said, this is like a fancy Facebook. But that's how I got hired at Heritage Gas. I had Meridia message me and, they recruited me and it sounded like a great opportunity. I went through the interview process with them and it was awesome. So that's super important. LinkedIn is crazy important. And again, just to kind of reiterate what Jeff said, it's highly competitive, especially when you're kind of in your last semester, your second last semester at the Mount. I know all the firms do their September hiring when you're in your fourth year. I was one of the last people to get a job of all my friends. It sucked. And I just remember that feeling, like all your friends are kicking back, they're going to their classes, but like they're not studying nearly as hard anymore because they're like, oh, I already got a job, it's fine. And then you're stressing about it and it sucks. But my job started in January when I found it. So there are jobs that come up, and it's all about being in the right place at the right time. And grades are important. I can't remember what my GPA was, but it wasn't a 4 by any stretch. And when I went for my interview at Lyle Tilly, the partner looked at my grades and said, oh, there's a couple of A's, a couple of B's, and then he never talked about it again. And I never heard about it again. So it's grades are important, but who you are is also extremely important. So,
what opportunities for advancement does the profession offer? We'll start with you, Rhonda.
I take accounting as someone that can be a CEO, a CFO, a COO. There's no end to it, really. And I think that's what a lot of students don't understand. They think of it as becoming an accountant, and they go through their CPA program and they're at a firm in a lot of cases. And I'm going back to the first cohort that went through the CPA program because I had these discussions with the students when they went through their first Core 2 module, which is management accounting, which all of them despised because they all work for firms and they only did tax and audit. And I said to them, you don't understand how important this module is. Oh, it doesn't mean anything. We don't do this kind of work. And I said, do you honestly think you're going to sit behind a desk and do tax returns or audit working papers for the rest of your life? Well, no. I said, well, then you don't know where you're going to end up. I said, I never ever thought I'd end up into industry, then into entrepreneurship of all places, one of the scariest places in the world to be. Where's your next paycheck? Can I pay my employees coming from? To teaching. So you really don't know where you're going to end up being. So really, your path can take you anywhere. You can end up being the CEO, you can be a CFO, you can be a COO, you can end up running the route to academia down the road, or do it in your part-time thing, or you can end up running your own business. And very successful businesses, and Jeff's a prime example of that. So, what opportunities? Whatever you choose for your opportunity and you strive to get to. Because anything is open to you. As long as you network enough and seek your opportunity.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I mean, I just got the designation, or I'll have it this summer, the actual letters. And my boss has the designation, and my boss's boss has the designation, and it goes all the way up. So I would say that's a pretty key important point, is to if you want to pursue accounting or really management in the finance kind of sector, I would definitely recommend the designation because it seems pretty prevalent when I look at, even my company. But even outside of that, we have an IT group of 3 people, and 2 of them are CGAs who liked accounting but liked computers more, and now they're running our IT department. So you can kind of move around in a lot of different areas. I have a couple of other friends who got the designation and then they went and became project managers, and that's what they do now. So it's accounting's not just you sit behind a desk and you just punch numbers in a calculator and work with spreadsheets all day. But there's a lot of that, but but you can kind of go anywhere. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think just to echo that, I mean, the upside of being an accountant is you understand the business probably better than anybody. You know the ins and the outs, you know how you make money, you know where you don't make money, you know how everything works. You're just, because of what you do, you're embedded in the business. So, I mean, certainly not in all cases, but accountants have lots of opportunity for advancement, even within the same business. You could be hired as a entry-level accountant and eventually could become CFO, CEO, whatever. So that's, I think maybe more so than any other profession, the upside is enormous. And I think the other piece to it is I think Rhonda and Corey both made the point, doesn't necessarily mean you have to be an accountant. I mean, once you're in there and you understand the business, you can really do anything. And I think that's where my biggest learning, and back to my point earlier on differentiating yourself, to me, everything is sales. So yes, I'm an accountant. Yes, I have my CPA designation. Yes, I can work a spreadsheet like nobody's business. But at the end of the day, I can sell. And that's, in business, you're selling something. I'm biased, but you're always selling something. You're either selling yourself, you're selling your skills, you're selling your business, you're selling whatever, your suggestion to your boss. So I think that's kind of a unique skill set that I think people just think, oh, I'm an accountant, I don't sell. I don't want to have anything to do with sales. And I think that's something that in business that allows for that advancement outside of, you can work a mean spreadsheet, but can you sell your ideas to your boss? Can you sell your business in terms of the benefits, or can you sell yourself on why you should be the one advancing? So I think that's kind of an often overlooked skill in the accounting finance world. And I think we were supposed to have some bankers here today, but we didn't because of the weather. If you ask bankers, their job is sales. Yeah, they know finance. Yeah, they can calculate the present value of this, that, and the other thing. But at the end of the day, they're selling. That's what they do. So I think from an advancement perspective, you don't want to sort of narrow yourself into a corner where I'm a numbers guy or I'm a numbers lady and I can work a spreadsheet and I'm going to become CEO someday. Just take the path, go with it, try different things, understand different parts of the business. I've done HR, which I never would have thought ever would be something that I would even ever want to do. So you've got to you do that, you take some roles that are a bit different. Maybe it's project management, maybe it's IT, maybe it's HR, maybe it's sales for that matter. And that sort of breadth of experience is really what allows the progression. So, but there's a ton of opportunity. As an accountant in industry, the advancement opportunities are off the chart. So the only thing I'd add to that is be patient, take your time. You don't know everything when you think you know everything. That was the biggest slap across my face. Why am I not getting these new jobs? Because I know everything. And then now that I kind of know everything, I look back and go, I really didn't know everything.
So what is it about your job that you enjoy the most? We'll start with you, Corey.
Well, I just started at Heritage Gas back in November. So I'm just at that point where you actually kind of start to know what you're doing and you're not really just, winging it, hoping for the best, like you do with every new job. But, even that, well, I'll tell you, the firm is a different beast. It's, if you're okay with grinding out for long hours, and you can put that behind you, the work is awesome. I I loved the actual work that you do in a firm. I just hated being at the office at midnight during tax season. That sucks. So that would be my only rant on the firm. But you know, it's definitely the unique challenges. So my role at Heritage Gas is kind of new. They kind of created it and shift some responsibilities over because some people left. And just for instance, like last month, they said, Corey, we need to remit our municipal taxes, and nobody really formalized how to do it, so just kind of figure out how to do it. So it's these unique challenges that kind of come up, and you know, like next week I'm going to Edmonton to test out our new accounting software. So I would say those are kind of the biggest things that I enjoy.
For me, it's just flexibility, and no 2 days are the same. So it's, you know, it gets boring if you're behind a desk all day, every day doing the same spreadsheet. But for me, there's days where it's really stressful because something happens. Something blows up and it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. And then you're problem solving. So I'd say in my job, excluding the mount, probably 90% of my role is just problem solving. So there's a problem, something happens. How do we fix it? How do we make money, or how do we not lose money? So it's really not structured. It's fluid, which is, it takes some getting used to, but I love that. If you said to me, okay, Jeff, you're going to go work a job that's 9 to 5 behind a desk every day, not a chance. Never doing it again. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but that's not what sort of makes me tick. That's why I like teaching. You come, you talk to people, you interact. The questions are always different. The challenges are always different, so it's fun. And with that comes flexibility. There's days or weeks where I'm working all day, all night, weekends, it's full out. And then there's days where it's not as busy. In the summer, I do my best to work as hard as I can up till June. And then for the summer, my goal is to work from the beach with my laptop and my paddleboard. And then September comes around and it's back to working like crazy. So that sort of flexibility and that sort of fluidity of the job is really, to go away from that now, I don't think I could. I'd be bored out of my mind.
I also can't do structure. I like certain amount of structure, but I need to create that structure that works for me. So for me, I'm also not a 9 to 5 person. Currently, I'm teaching a 9 a.m. class. That's rough. Full on, we'll say that. I won't be teaching another one until next January. That I already know. So I don't have that same structure. I do have a lot of different challenges with regards to dealing with the corporate side of our businesses that we have. So for the purpose of the books and stuff, I do have certain deadlines and stuff that I do need to meet. I can do some things in advance if I have to. I do a bit of sales and stuff still in the sign company. So I do work with some of the clients, and that's probably one of the things that I do enjoy. And the reason I enjoy that is because it gives me different insights into different industries and different businesses that I can turn around and I can bring into the classroom and explain how the accounting side of it goes. And that provides me with information for my classes, which is kind of cool because I'm getting paid on both ends to get that information. I'm not having to sit down and research. I'm getting paid on the end to do it. So I do enjoy that. For the school part, I do really, really enjoy teaching. I didn't know if I was going to when I first got offered the opportunity. I was put in front of 3 classes in my first semester and I was like scared out of my mind, but I actually really enjoyed it. So I will say that that is something that I think I have found my niche, and it's something that I would like to do well into my later years.
So there have been major advancements in technology that are impacting businesses in every facet. How do you think this may impact the accounting profession? We can start with Jeff, I think.
I think that's actually a fantastic question because that's something that I see all the time. And I feel in one of my businesses is kind of a technology company, and it's it's all about data. Like today, that's as much as I try and avoid it and tell my kids that's more to life than that. The reality is nowadays, like that's one of my businesses, we collected, I think it's like 1 million data points every couple hours or something crazy. So it's kind of this and I'm in the accounting department, like I'm finance. So it's all about, you've got all this data now and it's everywhere. So it's online, it's on your tablet, it's on your phone. What do you do with it? And how do you actually make it useful? And I think that's sort of the iteration in accounting that's happening now, is just almost an abundance, or you're overwhelmed with data and trying to figure out, as accountants, how do we use that to actually be beneficial and make decisions. And I think we just had a meeting here at the Mount on Friday, as all the accounting faculty, talking about sort of the new competency map and CPA and all this fancy stuff. But it comes down to, how do you deal with data and data analytics and predictive data analytics and blockchain? So all this crazy new terminology that, you guys are going to have to figure out, how do you manage that? And I'm going through that in one of my businesses right now, where we have all this data, but all it does is just accumulate. So, okay, so we have it. How do we use that to be more profitable, to have better returns, to sell more, to cut our costs, whatever? So it's becoming much more of a, and I said this Friday, the folks in my organization, I've got a couple of accountants, but it's now a mix of accounting and engineering and statistics that are all working together to try and make use of it. So I think for you guys, it's understanding that technology, understanding what is blockchain, what is data analytics, what is predictive analytics, how does that all work into finance, and how do you manage that? What are the terminologies? If I were talking to a student now that was first year thinking about majoring in accounting and had sort of a blank slate in terms of what electives to take, I would push them towards more stats classes. Say, go do some stuff in stats, do some stuff in IT. And we have that now, and as part of the program, you have to take that spreadsheet class. But I took a database class when I was here a few years ago, and that was probably, no disrespect to accounting, but that was probably the most beneficial class I took. Because now, not so much now, but even 5 years ago, I was the only accountant that knew how table structure worked and how databases worked. And that played to my advantage. Now it's gone way beyond my knowledge. So I encourage you guys to look at understanding all of that terminology. And if you can take courses on that type of stuff and how you manage data, all the better. So that would be my suggestion, but it's massive and it's evolving so quickly that and I'm not the most tech savvy person, so I probably get left behind, but for you guys, just staying on top of it is going to be a challenge, and it's going to be ultra important, because everything, and my businesses are one of them is drinks. How do you make flavored water? So it's not like it's all that cool of a business, but it's data. There's data everywhere, and everybody's asking about our data analytics. It's like, I don't know, man, it's water and juice. Like, I don't know, but that's all the investors. It's all about data. Everything's about data. So for you guys, it's trying to stay on top of that and stay current, so that when you get into your role, you inevitably will have a bunch of discussions around data that you're going to have to know how to have those conversations.
How do I think it's going to impact? Well, I mean, we're moving a lot into the cloud for a lot of the things that we do now, in general, like in the accounting function itself. That's going to make a bit of a change. I don't know how much that's going to affect actual accountants, or if it's going to affect more bookkeepers. I think it would affect more bookkeepers, if I'm accurate in saying that. The other thing, with regards to the technology and the data he's talking about, I mean, data's always been around, not to the extent that we're pulling it now and we're getting so many different things. I mean, for instance, like I have Yellow Pages run one of my websites for one of the companies, and they're always sending me data analytics, and I'm like, I don't even know what half of this stuff means. However, I do have a little bit of an IT background, because when I worked at Imperial Oil, one of the backup jobs I had was writing reports and creating reports basically by writing code in Unix, right? So I did have some background in that. That's not really up to date now. That's 90s. This is now 2000 we'll be 2020 before we know it, next year. So, you know, it's beneficial that if you get the opportunity to do professional development courses, that you do take something in the way of data analytics and that sort of thing as extras outside of, like, because a lot of you would be graduating soon. I'm looking at a few of you that are graduating soon with accounting degrees as a major. Maybe getting that stuff in PD would be an extra bonus. And you will get exposed to some data analytics stuff in CPA. Because it became effective this semester, so you'll be actually using and running some programs.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, data's super important. I was one of those guys in the management accounting and in the CPA program that was at a firm and was like, oh, I don't need to use this. And then now my entire job is that management accounting, so definitely pay attention. But yeah, I use data all the time. We have data's right down to how much gigajoules of natural gas you use in your house, and we run it for every single customer, and it's a tremendous amount. I also, so I briefly mentioned that next week we're going to me and my team were going to Edmonton to test out a new accounting software, and it's a huge project because right now our accounting software is like DOS based. It's black screen, green text. It looks awful. It's miserable, but it's going browser based, and it's so much easier to use, and it's so much more efficient. So that'd be one of the biggest things. And when I was at the firm, you used to have to sometimes go back 10 or 20 years, and everything was so paper based. When I was at La Tilly, it was so much paper, and now you would go in, you'd say, "Wow, you're not really a paperless firm. You still have a whole lot of paper, but like, I mean, you don't have to do tax returns by hand anymore, which is awesome." So yeah, that would be my biggest thing is paper and efficiency.
I'll just jump on here for 1 second. And there's like apps out now that you can like pretty much take pictures of all your receipts and upload them to the cloud, and it just lands in your QuickBooks or Sage for small businesses and stuff like that. All that kind of stuff is out there now. Like the technology is growing. I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, it depends on how fast you are at keying if you're doing any of the bookkeeping functions. I mean, sometimes I think for me, like people used to say, oh, buy the scanner and slide the thing through. I'm like, I can type it in faster than that. But that depends on your typing skills to a certain extent, right?
I think another great example too, now that we're getting rolling here, is if you guys follow the news at all, you've got that blockchain company out in Fall River where the founder passed away in India. Now they're missing $270 million worth of Bitcoins or something or other, something over my head. But you look at that, and if you read, and I've been following it because I find it really interesting, and one of my buddies is in a business that's similar to that, so trying to keep tabs on what's happening. So you've got call it $270 million of people's money has just vanished because a 30-year-old passed away in India, which is obviously super sad. But you look at that, and who's managing that whole process? It's accountants. The whole process is being managed by Ernst & Young. So you've got accountants now having to understand how Bitcoin trading platforms work and what cold wallets versus hot wallets versus whatever else. So that's all relevant to you as an accountant. That's your world. And because all of this stuff's becoming digitized, you have no choice but to understand it. Or you should understand it, or you're going to get left behind like me. So that's where you've got to be. All this data and technology stuff, it's going to be in your face all the time. So it's going to be really important that you guys not only understand it, but ideally know it the best you can.
So our final question before we open the floor for some student questions is, do you have any advice or suggestions for students pursuing a career in accounting? We'll start with Corey.
We've kind of touched up on a lot of it. Connections was a big point that we made early on. Super important. Some of you who are going into your last semester, your second last, whenever all the firms are doing all their recruiting events, and they really do a great job of making it seem like the firm is the only way to go, and that's the best way to go, and that's where all the smart people go, but it's really not how it works. So just kind of open up your minds to other opportunities and focus on that. And my other point would be to pursue the designation. I mean, it's already helped me jump into a new career, and I don't even officially have the letters yet. So yeah, that would be my biggest thing. And if you do want to go in the firm route, because a lot of people do, and a lot of people enjoy it, grades are important, but keeping busy and proving that you can still maintain, good grades is important. So, you know, having, like, I had part-time jobs. I think I did some marketing for Jeff, you know, when I was here, and then just, you know, doing any volunteering, like anything like that. If you can prove that you're just busy and you can still handle it, that's really what the firms want. Because the CPA is, if you want to go that route, it's a tough program, and it's not so much the content, it's the time commitment, and a lot of late nights studying, but it is worth it. So that'll be my 2 cents there.
Yeah, I think just to add to Corey's point, and his were really good. You know, I think the CPA designation is fantastic. Obviously, it opens a ton of doors, but to be 100% transparent, it's not for everybody. So it's going to be really difficult. It's going to be really long hours. It's going to be a massive commitment. I don't know what the new rule is, but if you fail so many times, you're done. So, you know, you've got to, again, kind of self-reflect and say, is this something I'm committed to and that I want to do? And if the answer is yes, go for it. And I think networking for me is the biggest one, and I've tried to stay away from that a bit today because I always blab on about networking, but it's all about personal brand and networking. Define who you are and what makes you better, different than everybody else, and then find ways to communicate that out. And that's, whether that's these types of events, although today you've got 2 professors, so it's not as good, but it could be Learning Passport, could be Halifax Chamber of Commerce. We took some students to the Halifax Chamber of Commerce luncheon a couple weeks ago. This is just an example. There's one guy who's in one of my classes. Him and I were kind of just standing together. And in the, 45 minutes to an hour we were there, he met the Premier, he met the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Business. He met Wade Taylor, who runs Grant Thornton for Atlantic Canada. He met Michelle, who's the Atlantic Managing Partner for Grant Thornton. He met Tim Robbins, who's the VP at CIBC. Just standing for no reason other than we were just standing there. And then since then, that was, 3 weeks ago, I've had 2 of them that I've spoken to, Wade from Grant Thornton and Tim from CIBC, who have both said, oh, that guy, what was that student's name? He was really nice. I really liked him. What's he doing? They're not necessarily going to run out and hire him, but when the time comes for him to apply for that job, for a job at either of those places, all it takes is them going, oh yeah, I remember that kid. That's the guy I met at the dinner that day. Like it really, it's hard to believe, but it really does make a difference. You don't need a lot of face time for these people to remember. They're going to get stacks of 1,000 resumes that are all going to look the same. They're all students who have all graduated in the last year, who all have this, that, the other thing, a GPA of X, Y, and Z or whatever. They just need something that's going to make a difference. That's all it takes. And that one meeting can be all that you need. So I kind of go on those tangents a lot, but it is what will get people hired. And that's sort of what you guys need to kind of figure out is, how am I going to be different? You don't have to be way different, just different. And then carve out your little niche. For me, it was I could sell. I could sell the business. I could sell myself. That's how sort of I landed where I landed. So those are the types of things that I think for you guys, trying to figure out what path you're going to take. Is it something you're committed to and you want to do? And then how are you going to differentiate yourself from the other gazillion applicants that go into all these jobs? And as I said, it's really not as complicated as you'd think. It's that one meeting. That's all it takes. And I think of that student, and that was the one where, and I've always preached it, and I've always said, yeah, I've seen it happen. But this was one that just blew my mind. Like 3 weeks later, I've got 2 of them asking about him. They don't remember his name, but I told them. So now when he goes to apply for that job, I'm going to say, if you're going to apply to Grant Thornton, you make sure you address it to Wade, and you find a way to remind him that you're the guy that he met that day, and you'll get the job, guaranteed. And I've seen it happen with some of our students who have graduated here. Becky graduated, got on at Ernst & Young. She did really well. There's just countless examples where just one introduction, one face-to-face, outside of the, what's your name, tell me about yourself, what's your resume, okay, yeah, we'll call you back. One meeting outside of that is all it takes. So it may take multiple times to get that face-to-face, but it's the Mount. That's one of the great things about the Mount is we provide that opportunity. As much as the Learning Passport and all that stuff, the chambered things they can be painful, frankly, but all it takes is the one connection and you're set. So make an effort. That's all it really takes. Make an effort, get the FaceTime, figure out how you're different, and your path is right there for you.
Get a mentor. That's the one thing I can say to you, is that you have a mentor or two. Someone that's going to be able to help you along your path, whether it's through career or through the CPA program or both. But having a mentor is huge, or multiple mentors that provide you with guidance and provide you with network opportunities. The other thing is if you are planning to do the CPA program, I would highly recommend that you do it upon leaving university. The reason I suggest that is it's less time having to review stuff that you haven't done in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, which will cut down on the amount of hours you do need to put in. I think it does, because I get the comments back. I've taught in the CPA program since its inception in 2014, so I've probably taught, I don't know, 400, 500, 600, 700 candidates over the last 5 years. I've had a lot of conversations with them about when they've taken time off, and I can speak to you from taking time off myself. I had to go back and do an accelerator program, mostly because I was missing a couple of courses that I never ever took, or MIS didn't exist actually when I was a university student, and I had to have it when I entered the CMA program. But doing it right away does provide less review down the road. You may not get your letters right away, you may not be in that job right away, but courses are what? $1,600? I don't. $1,200. It's not expensive. I'm going to tell you something. One course in an MBA program is about $2,000 right now, or more, at St. Mary's, which is probably the cheapest university, one of the cheapest universities in Canada to get an MBA. So, and that would be a course like what you take in your undergrad, one single course. So you're doing a whole module. You only need to do 6, and you get a designation. So it's a relatively cheap way to get a really high designation, if this is what you're interested in. But I do suggest that you do it right away, just because of the less review and the less taxing on you as a person. I don't know how long you get. 7 years to get your letters, to get your work experience?
Yeah, you get 7 years from the time that you start the program to get, I think it's 30 months of work experience. But the way that I did it was I graduated from the Mount December 17, and I was enrolled in CPA May 2018. And that was the next real offering. And I just went straight through and did not stop. And it was tough. It's because you do get burnt out sometimes, but it's definitely worth it, because you everything stacks up onto each other, especially when you get to the capstone, the later modules in the CPA program, and you got to pull everything together. When you've done them back to back, you can kind of be like, oh, I actually blatantly remember that assignment that I did that 1 week, and it really does help.
So we're going to open the floor to student questions. I'm going to bring around a microphone. Just raise your hand if you'd like to answer a question, or ask a question. Hopefully you are looking for an answer. And we have time for about like 5 or 6, 7 questions. So just raise your hand if you'd like to ask one. Yes. Because if you don't, I have to repeat the question.
Okay. You were saying, Jeff, about switching jobs earlier, and how it's pretty common within the industry, but sometimes you can switch jobs too much. I'm kind of wondering where the line is with that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think switching jobs it happens, right? I mean, you get in, you get a job, you either don't like it or it's not what you expected or whatever, and you change. So I think to some extent, some transaction or transient nature is expected. For me, if I'm hiring, that's frankly one of the first things I look at, is how many times have they changed jobs and what's the average duration. Because by the time you hire somebody, train them, you've invested money and time into that, so you don't want them then just to pull the chute and leave and you do it all over again. So you kind of get into, and I don't know that there's really, everybody's going to be a bit different. For me, I kind of look at it, and I'd like to think I'm more open-minded, so I'll look at it and say, oh yeah, this person worked at Heritage Gas, and that's a brutal place to work, and they only lasted 6 months. Yeah, okay, I would have done the same thing. But you've got to, if it's a perpetual flip, and every month or every 6 months or every year you're changing jobs, that becomes a problem. But I think in those, frankly, for most people when you graduate, they're going to be entry-level-ish jobs. Those are transient. So if you're showing a year and a half, 2 years at each of those, that's what I would expect. If every job is 6 months, 4 months, 6 months, 4 months, then I kind of go, there's a problem somewhere. So it really depends. So I don't know that I have a sort of finite answer, but I think it's just something that you want to be cognizant of when you're looking at your resume or preparing your resume is, does it strike whoever's looking at it as I'm somebody who bounces around a lot? Because that's not, frankly, what you want. So, and I've stuck out jobs longer than I wanted to for that exact reason. I switched a job. I was at a job for 6 years. I went and did a 1-year contract on mergers and acquisitions. They wanted to keep me. I didn't really like it. There's too much travel. So I went to another job. I was there for about a year at best before I realized that this wasn't going to be long term. But I said, I can't switch now because my last 2 have been quick. So I've got to wait it out. So I stuck out 3 years. And then as soon as I felt like, okay, 3 years flies, I'm out and on to the next. So everybody's going to be different. Each hiring manager is going to be different. But I think if you're showing a sort of perpetual change, that's likely going to be a problem.
Do you guys recommend doing the co-op program in order to be successful in our careers?
I'll go first, I guess. I think the co-op's fantastic. I think it's a great program. I didn't do it, but I think any experience you can get is helpful for sure. And I think, to be honest, I think what I see in industry is some people struggle with the workplace. They don't get that, and I'm probably going to get myself in trouble here, but the millennial generation is different. It is. It took me a year and a half to figure out I can't just keep firing these people because they don't want to work all day, it's a different, and I mean that respectfully, because now I realize that I'm the dinosaur and that's the way it's supposed to be. But I think the co-op gives you the ability to get into a job and figure out what is the expectation. And for me, again, I sort of encourage flexibility because that's what I want, but not everybody is that way. And I've had people, one of the managers that I have in our business, one of my businesses, she's a Harvard MBA, she's old school, it's like 6:30 a.m. and she lives in Ontario too. So 6:30 a.m. till like 7 p.m. is like her work day. And one of the guys that works for her sits physically in Halifax in my office. And I feel bad for the guy because he's like, I work at night, I work on the weekends from home, but I don't want to be in the office at 7:30 until 8 o'clock. Like that's just not what I want to do. So for me, if I'm the manager, I'm like, yeah, it's cool, man. You work from home here and there and work on the weekend. And if you want to walk your dog for an hour at lunch, I don't care. You want to go to yoga, go for it. But not everybody's that way. This other lady is, you're at your desk at 7:30 and it's old school. You don't leave till your boss leaves. And she doesn't leave till 7 at night in Ontario. That's 8 o'clock our time. So this poor kid's strapped to his desk. You're not a kid, but this poor guy. So you guys need to figure out that dynamic and what's expected of you in that world. And I think the co-op, more so than anything else, it gets you into that, okay, this is what a work world is like. I've got to wear khakis and a golf shirt, or I've got to wear, I've got to be here, here, and here. And when I go to lunch, I need to tell people I'm going to lunch. And just understanding that sort of give take in a work environment it can be tricky, and it's very company and manager dependent. And for you guys to get exposure to that and understand how that dynamic works, I personally think, and no disrespect to the co-op program, but that's the biggest value for that, is just understanding that professional environment and how different it is and how different it can be amongst different groups.
I think co-op is very important. If you're not really great at selling yourself, like on your own, then this is a good opportunity for you to gain those skill sets, is because you have to go in and out of interviews and they give you practice in certain things that you do. Do they give you practice in interviews in co-op, Abby? Abby's co-op, so she should answer this question.
I am a co-op student. So are you looking at the co-op program? Yeah. So it's a really good program. I've done it. I originally was not going to do it, but my parents forced me to do it as much as they can force an adult child to do something. But it is really helpful. I went into it with a lot of work experience for someone my age. Like, I had worked 8 different jobs, some of which were for 4 or 5 years before I started the co-op program. And they help you along, they help you build your resume, they help to teach you how to write a cover letter, and you don't have to go out and search for jobs to apply for. They're there, it's in a system, and they say, there are 6 accounting jobs you can apply for. One of them's in Yellowknife, there's one in Newfoundland, there's 2 in Ottawa, the rest are in Halifax. And you get to read the job description, you get to learn about the employer, because a lot of them are the same employers, so they'll hire students from the Mount continuously. And so you're able to see, okay, this is who's going to be getting my cover letter or my resume. So it's not a guessing game. You can then look up online, okay, so who is, for example, if Jeff McKinnon was hiring a co-op student, it would say Jeff McKinnon, his position. You can go on the internet and find it out. And then they help you through that process of getting the interview. So you'll do a co-op PD day, and they'll teach you about what the interview will look like. What do you expect? Is it a phone interview? Is it a Skype interview? Is it an in-person interview? I personally did not interview for my co-op position because I went out and I found my position on my own, and I was hired on the spot. So I didn't get the interview practice that normally you get through the co-op program, but it is there. I'll get it when I do my last co-op placement because I'm on an 8th-month term now. But I suggest doing the co-op program because you do get the experience of having a job, like Jeff said, and learning what you like and what you don't like. So it gets you the opportunity to go into a position you know is only for a certain period of time. You're only there for 4 months, and it flies. Trust me, I'm in month 7 right now, and I have a month and a half left. And it's gone by super fast. So it gives you a brief period of time where you're not committed to anything else. And it's expected that you're only there for the 4 months. So when you shows up on your resume, you only did this job for 4 months, you only did this other job for 4 months, an employer's not going to look at it and be like, oh, this person switches around a lot. That's just how the co-op program is structured. So it's a really good opportunity to go and experience, I don't know, maybe I want to go work in an accounting firm, or I want to go work in a small business doing accounting, or I want to go and work in recreation or in education, and you get to really just pick, and you can do your own job search. So if you don't like what the co-op program has to offer for jobs that you can apply for, or if you already have something in mind, someone said, hey, when you start the co-op program, I'd like to hire you, you can do your own job search. As long as it fits the guidelines for a co-op placement, you're all set to go. So, does that help?
I would just add, I didn't do the co-op program. I was signed up, ready to go, but then realized I wanted to finish my degree as early as possible, and co-op would have extended it. So I decided not to do it, but I would just say that there's no risk. You can kind of do any job that's on that list, and nobody really, when you start off with a co-op, well, we had a bunch of co-ops at the firm, nobody expects you to have this crazy amount of knowledge and all of this stuff. They really just give you a taste of what it's like to work at that type of business, and there really is no risk because you're gone in 4 months. So if you liked it, you can go do another similar one, or you can try something else. I will also say that all of my friends that did the co-op program did get jobs a lot earlier than the ones who didn't. Just in my experience, I'm not saying that that was everybody, but with my friends, they all had jobs by the end of their last co-op term. Mostly with the firms, but yeah, so.
Perfect. So we're going to conclude the panel for today. We'll stamp the learning passports at the back. But if you just give our panelists a round of applause for being here on this snowy day.